Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sorting Thoughts podcast. And today is a very special day because we are Friday, 31st of October, and it is none other than Halloween. So, welcome to this very special Halloween episode. And for this special episode, I wanted to talk about scary stories, and I found a few on Reddit. So, if you're bold enough to listen to these stories, then let's get into it. Before we get started, I would very much like to share that Nala is sitting right next to me. Nala is my cat, and she's purring so hard right now. I don't know if the mic will be able to get it, but hear that. I hope it worked because she's purring so hard and it's such a soothing sound. I love it. It's a great soothing sound before we get into the first story that I called A Discovery in the Woods. A few years ago, I was walking through the woods off the beaten track a bit, and I smelled this really overpowering sweet smell. Being noisy, I pulled the undergrowth to have a look and found a dead body. The guy had clearly been there a while and wasn't looking great, all swollen and green and black with various runny bits. The local wildlife had also been dining well for a few days. I called the police, who told me to wait with the body until they arrived. Being in the middle of nowhere, it took a while for them to arrive and it got dark. And I just sat there in the dark with him for a long time. It turned out he had committed suicide. For a long time afterwards, I had dreams about him and he would talk to me, not nice things, mainly about how he was angry I had disturbed his resting place and he wanted me to kill myself. Probably just my imagination, but all pretty disturbing at the same time. He still turns up in my dreams from time to time, and no doubt will be tonight after typing this. This sounds very traumatic. Dude probably has PTSD from it, and I think it might be one of those things that is like really hard to forget and get over. I really hope in my life I will never be one to find something like that, like a dead person and like that. I don't know what it would do to me. I really don't. I feel like you don't know until you're like experiencing it because it's the type of things that stays with you for life. Like, for example, my grandpa was a firefighter and he used to look for dead bodies a lot in the river. And so when he was looking for them after their disappearance, let's say the bodies were not really in the greatest shape. I'm going to spare you the details, but it's really one of those things that has stayed with him a lot. Firefighters in general see horrible things. Like, I can't even imagine what they see on a daily basis. Like, that's what they do for work. And that's crazy. It's a really hard job, so I can't even imagine this dude taking a walk through the woods and just finding a dead body. That's crazy. I can't even imagine how he must feel and how, like, there's this saying that whenever you find a dead body, that it will sort of haunt you, specifically if they committed suicide. And I don't know where I heard that. Probably, I don't know if you know about this forest in Japan, probably. And it is said that whoever finds someone that committed suicide in that forest, because it is what it is known for, the soul of the person who committed suicide will haunt the person that discovered them for the rest of their lives. I don't know if it is true, but that's what I've heard. Story number 2 is called The House at the End of the Street. My house sits further back in the lot than most other houses. It is a strange layout as well. The sidewalk runs the length of the living room and ends at the front porch, which lets into the living room. Large windows that do not open allow great light to get into the living room, but at the cost of no privacy. The rest of my family was on vacation, and having the house to myself, I decided I would get smashed. Well, I passed out on the couch in the living room at about 9. When I realized I was too scared to walk back to my room, the couch is right underneath these big windows. I woke up suddenly, not knowing why. I had a severe case of the chills and I could not figure out why. Then the banging started. It came from right above me. I did not move, but I opened my eyes and looked up at the window. Someone was standing there, pounding on the glass. Without moving, I looked at the cable box. It was around 3 in the morning. The banging continues. Then it stopped suddenly, but I still did not move. Suddenly, it commences again, coming from 2 different directions now. Someone was banging on the front door. They kept doing it. They would not go away. Finally, after about 40 minutes, they quit. It was the most terrifying event I can recall at the moment. It made me a nervous wreck. After that, I called a friend the next day to see if he would come over and stay for the rest of the week. And his response was, "What the fuck for? So that we can both be murdered in our sleep? Thanks a lot, asshole." That one is definitely also traumatic. Like, what? But I also can't imagine how in those 45 minutes you didn't call the police. Like, I feel like that's something I would try to do, but maybe the person didn't have its phone near them. But even if I didn't want to call the police, I think I would have probably tried to call like one of the neighbors, even though it's 3 a.m. It's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, call your neighbor at 3 a.m. or the police. Like, knowing what you're going through, I don't think they would mind. But also, you would have to have the number of your neighbors. And not everybody has the number of their neighbors. Like, I don't have them. Also, on that thread, someone responded with the same experience. And they actually did call the police, and they said it was a common practice of burglars. So they'll knock constantly for a while, and if there's no response and if they don't hear anything, it sort of says to them like, okay, we can get in and steal. So it's a way for them to know if they can break in or not. And like waking up suddenly without really knowing why with a case of the chills, that's terrifying. Like, ugh. That actually just gave me the chills by just imagining like the person knocking on the window and seeing said person sleeping on the couch and just like watching them until like they probably saw when they were waking up. Because you can see, you know, the difference between somebody that is dead ass asleep and someone that is, you know, starting to wake up. They move a lot more than if they were completely asleep. That's scary, which makes me think about a story of my own. And I'm going to get into it now. And I called this story A Warm Welcome Home. So I used to work in an amusement park, and sometimes I would be working until midnight because I was working a closing shift. So I had then about 30 minutes to drive back home. So I drive home. I get in front of my house. I park the car. I get out of my car, and on my way to the front door, I heard rustling in the bushes. So I looked up and turned on my flashlight on my phone, and there was literally nothing there. I thought at first that it could have been one of my cats because we have two outdoor cats and Nala is the only indoor cat. And so sometimes, they don't necessarily greet us whenever we come home. They run in the opposite direction. And so I thought it could have been one of the cats, but I didn't see anything. But also, one of my cat is black. So to see a black cat in the dark, it's kind of hard, Unless the flashlight is reflecting on their eyes, then you'll see that there's something there. But other than that, it's pretty hard to see a black cat in the dark when it's pitch black also outside. So as I see that there's nothing there, I continue to make my way to the front door. I unlock it. I enter the house. And I go put my bags down on the dining table before closing and locking the door because my hands were full. And I turn around and I go to the front door and I close it. And as I am locking it, like a microsecond after hearing the click, the door handle moves as if someone was trying to get in from the outside. And European handles are very much different than US handles. Like you have a doorknob, but we really have a handle. So it isn't a knob turning, it is really a handle moving. So yeah, that freaked me out. And mind you, I had not turned the lights on because I still had my flashlight on. I was in the dark completely besides said flashlight. And what is very scary about this one is that my parents' front door has windows in it. Like it's literally separated into 3 different triangle windows. And so as I had my flashlight on, if I had looked at the window to see if there was someone behind it, I wouldn't have seen anything. I would have only seen my reflection. But the person behind my parents' door could literally see me. They did see me, but I didn't see them. I don't remember looking at the window because I saw that I could see my reflection like from the corner of my eye, but I didn't directly look at the window. Just imagine if I would have seen something. That's scary as fuck. And I was already a bit scared because I remember like seeing the handle move and backing away immediately. I don't remember how long I stood there, but when my senses came back to me, I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and I looked into every corner of every room that's in my parents' house to see if there was someone that was hiding in there. And I slept with that knife under my pillow for 2 weeks because my parents had gone on vacation like the night before. So it was just the beginning of me being alone in my parents' house for 2 weeks. And I really don't mind staying alone in this house. Like I really don't mind. I've never minded staying alone in either my parents' house or my grandparents' house. Like I know some people get scared to stay in like these big countryside houses on their own. Yeah. They were gone for 2 weeks on their summer vacation. So it's not like I could call them and they were an hour away and could come like immediately. They were at the other side of the country, so I couldn't do that. And when they came back, my mom was like, why do you have a knife under your pillow? Because I also didn't tell them immediately because I didn't want to freak them out. Because I know my mom would have been worried constantly. I did tell my neighbor because I was supposed to bring keys to my neighbor for a car. And I was like, did you try and get in? Like, was that you? And he told me, no. I was like dead ass asleep. So to this day, I still have no clue what happened. But whatever it was didn't try to get in the house. But after thinking about it for a bit the next day, I was working a closing shift. So that day and the day before, and my parents had left a night prior to the days where I was working a closing shift. So the blinds had stayed closed all day for 2 days. It was the end of July. It's usually the weekend where everybody in the country is on vacation on the road, and there was probably burglars that had my parents' house as a target. And when they were gonna hit the house, I came back from work. And yeah, I can't even imagine what could have happened. Yeah, but we're not gonna go in with the if possibilities because they could be very long. But nonetheless, that night I literally shot my pants. But now let's get into the fourth story, and I called this story Knock Knock, Who's There? Every time I stay at my grandma's house, I hear someone walking upstairs. It starts at one side of the room, casually walks to the other, and stops. This will happen maybe twice a night. I didn't start hearing it until I was about 14, when my grandparents made me start sleeping in a different room on the first floor because they started sleeping in separate rooms. Regardless, both of their rooms are also on the first floor. For a little backstory, I have always been afraid of the upstairs at their house. I don't know why, but it's always freaked me out, and I refuse to ever go up there alone. I'm 23 now, still won't go alone. There's one specific room, though. It's a long, narrow bedroom. When you open the door, there are closets on your left and right, a bed placed roughly in the middle of the room, and a window on the far side opposite of the door. I was told growing up by my grandparents that the sons of the previous owner claimed to see a gorilla come out of the closet at night, dance around the room, and go back into the closet. I thought nothing of this story until I had to start sleeping in the other room, the room directly below the scary room upstairs. So we all go to bed, all the lights in the house are off, and I'm still awake, lying on the bed. Then I heard it. Thump, thump, thump. Starting at one end of the room upstairs, it got closer to me, passed right above me, and continued to the end of the room, where it stopped. I'm wide awake, terrified, out of my mind. It was no question to me that I heard footsteps. I knew that slow, casual pace. I was freaked out and went to my grandpa's room. I told him what I heard. He told me that the house is old and it creaks. But he turned the dining room light on for me, so I felt a little safer. I tried going back to sleep. Then it started again. This time, where it ended the first time by the window upstairs, it walks over me again and stops when it reached the door. I thought it was over until 5 seconds later when I heard it coming down the stairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Silence as it reached the landing. Then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And silence again as it reached the first floor. I was frozen in shock. Whatever it was on my floor of the house, and sadly unaffected by the dining room light. I was staring at the doorway to my room. The dining room light was shining in, and my vision began to distort. I felt dizzy with fear, so I pulled the blankets over my head and suddenly heard a scratching sound from inside my room. I knew exactly where it was coming from, too. My grandpa's gun case. It was a very obvious sound scratching on the wood, long scratches down the front of the gun case door. I could even hear the door ever so slightly tapping against the frame as each scratch began. I tried to scream and I couldn't. I took a second to take a deep breath and let out a loud scream. In seconds, my grandpa had made it to my room and I was relieved. Needless to say, he still didn't believe me. So I did what any normal person would. I dropped a sheet over the side of the bed and slept underneath it. I wrapped myself tight in a comforter, put on headphones, and turned my back to the door. There could be a party of ghosts in my room, and I wouldn't even know. The next morning, my grandma told my grandpa what happened the night before. She said, "Oh, that's silly, you know? Your cousin woke me up the last time she stayed here. She came in my room saying, 'I hear footsteps.' I slept under the bed for the rest of my week stay with them. I've stayed there countless times since that happened, and I hear footsteps every time. I sleep on top of the bed now, but I keep my back to the door and sleep with headphones on. I haven't heard it come down the stairs since that first night, but if it does, I don't want to know." So when I was reading the story, I found it really interesting because I feel like we all have a relative's house that we can't stay at because we're scared of that place. And it kind of reminded me of my mom's aunt's house. Some corners of that house have always freaked me out. It's a very old house as well. And there are some modern parts, but there are some really old parts. And so there was this living room, and it had a little corner where some of the toys were, by the way, which was scary to go. Scary to go there. It always freaked me out, but I never knew why. I did not feel the vibe. I didn't fuck with the vibe at all. But again, my eyes were always attracted to look at that corner. Like, as if I looked long enough, something would actually appear. I've heard in somebody's video on YouTube that does paranormal investigations, and they said that when, you know, kids are looking in a corner and don't feel the vibe, it's usually because there's something there. It's usually because there's an energy there or an entity. And if they don't see anything, good for them, because the entity didn't reveal themselves to the kids. But like, it's kind of like children's instinct to get creeped out by this little corner. That was not creepy on paper. You know, it was part of the living room, but it was under the stairs. And yeah, there was a chair underneath it. Like, it was really part of the living room, so there wasn't truly anything on paper that could be scary about it, but it always freaked me out. Like, whenever someone was telling me to go in that corner or sit in that chair, I was like, no. Like, I'd rather sit on the ground near the couch that's closer to the TV and not in that little corner. And now let's get into the fifth and final story of this episode, and I called it, "What's on the Side Road?" About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion pretty late at night because I had to be back for work the following day. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side, the real creepy ones you see a lot in movies. Anyway, I had been driving about 45 minutes, and I was starting to get really tired. Out of nowhere? Well, yeah, that happened to me. I knew I wasn't going to last, but I didn't come across any place that I felt I could park and safely sleep. Anyway, after it became clear to me that I wasn't going to find a place to pull up and my tiredness wasn't going away, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road onto the grass behind some bushes to try and hide my car from anybody else who was going to come past. The roads weren't empty. I came across another car every few minutes or so. I made a mental note that the time was 11:22 and then fell asleep. Sometime later, I was awoken by a scratching sound. I looked at the clock, 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was still extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. I was later awoken by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time, It really freaked me out because the sound didn't stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was just an animal inspecting the car. But why would it return almost an hour after it had left the previous time? I looked in my rearview mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running into the forest. Now, at the time, I thought it was the damn hood killer. You know, the one that scratched that couple's car and then slaughtered the guy when he got out to investigate. Fuck that, I thought to myself. So I got the hell out of there. There was a bend no more than 100 yards up the road, and as I came around it, there was a fucking car parked off to the side of the road with the driver's side door opened. I slowed down just to look to see if anyone was in there. There wasn't. Then I looked in my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything, and all of a sudden, this guy comes sprinting around the corner. He starts screaming at me, shouting stuff like, hey, you, get the fuck out of your car, now. I hopped the fuck out of there and sped off. I never saw the guy again. Moral of the story, don't fucking sleep on the side of a deserted road. Well, no shit. No shit. I don't think anyone in their right mind would ever sleep on a deserted road, specifically a woman. You know what I mean? Like, this must have been a man that wrote this, because no woman in their right mind would have slept in their car on a deserted road. Like, this is creepy. And as I was reading it, and before he mentioned it, I thought about the hood killer, because they talked about it in an episode of Scream Queens, and that reminded me of that. Wow, that is something I also never want to experience, but at the same time, this would never cross my mind, ever. Like, even if I was so tired and my eyes were closing on their own, I think just the thought of, well, sleeping somewhere deserted would literally wake me up. But again, that's also because I'm a woman, and it is less safer for a woman to sleep in her car on a deserted road than it is for a man. It's dangerous, of course, but the odds are less scary for a man. Well, this is it. I have read every single story. I hope you liked this Halloween episode. I thought I would do like this little scary thread of stories that happened to real human beings and not stories that were made up. So these are pretty much ordinary stories I found, and I feel like anyone can relate to those, because that could literally happen to anyone. But I hope you guys liked this episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.